everyone, and welcome back to LBMA's webinar series. I am Emmy Richardson, Compliance Analyst at LBMA, and today I'm joined by Kim Winding-Larson, President of ACI, and Rui Correa, Executive Director of ACI. Today we will be talking all things precious metals code with a particular focus on training. Before we get started, I have a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please submit them via the Q&A button, or if you're having technical issues, you can drop us an email at ask@lbma.org.uk. We will answer the questions towards the end of the webinar. And if we can move to the next slide. In December, LBMA announced the launch of version 2 of the Global Precious Metals Code. To give you some background, the code was originally launched in 2017 and is the leading guidance for all market participants in the global precious metals market. The code is intended to find a robust, fair, effective and transparent market where participants are able to transact following best practice guidelines. It sets out common principles to promote the integrity and effective functioning of the global market, covering ethics, governance, compliance and risk management, information sharing, and of course, business conduct. Last year, it was up for review, and the Code Working Group reconvened, which consisted of over 30 representatives from the global industry, including the Financial Market Standards Board and independent legal input from Simmons & Simmons. The working group reviewed version 1 of the code and compared changes made in the updated version of the FX code and the UK Money Market Code and implemented them into the draft where appropriate. The group also considered remote working, diversity and inclusion, physical settlement risk, and environmental, social and governance criteria. The group also added references to relevant FMSB papers, and given that the code is applicable to all market participants, the code now references industry standards, including LBMA's Responsible Gold guidance. The working group endeavoured to harmonise language and terminologies, and it is hoped that the additions made will further strengthen the standards and expectations of the physical precious metals market. And as part of that review, there were 2 public consultations, which we were really encouraged by the valuable responses. On behalf of LBMA, I would like to thank the working group and those who responded to the public consultations. The input was very useful in getting the second version of the code across the line, and LBMA are now in the process of seeking recognition from the FCA in line with their recognition programme. I think it's very timely to note that all members of LBMA and the LPPM will be required to attest to this update by the end of 2023. We also welcome non-members to attest where possible, which leads me on nicely to our guest speakers. To assist firms in fulfilling their obligations and to ensure all staff involved in the precious metals activity are trained in line with the guidelines of the code, LBMA has partnered with ACI FMA to provide training solution for this requirement. So I'd like to welcome Kim to tell us more about this.
Thank you very much, Emmy, and thank you to LBMA for firstly inviting us to this presentation on our education tools called ELAC, and Rui will take care of this presentation a little bit later. And firstly, also, I would like to thank LBMA for inviting us to respond to this consultation on the Global Precious Metal Code. After, as you said, 4 or 5 years, there was a need for a review of the code. And we have been very happy to be a part of this consultation. So thank you very much for inviting us. Thank you for the good cooperation. And we are looking forward to a good cooperation also going forward. But going to the next slides here, just a little bit about ACI FMA and our current status. ACI FMA is today in more than 60 countries in the whole world, representing at least individuals from the financial market industry. And we are, with our education tools, we are covering more than 75 countries in the whole world, where people are either being trained on our exams or they are using our electronic platform for training their staff members in different institutions like banks, buy-side companies, pension funds, central banks, etc., etc. So this is some of our core values: the education and the ethical conduct, and for sure the membership, where we are making a lot of webinars. We are joining congresses, conferences, different topics, but also we are quite in near contact, as I said, with central banks, regulators, and at least also both the buy side and the sell side. So this is some of our core values, and we will a little bit later, as I said, present our electronic training platform called ELAC. We are, as I said, in more than 75 countries in the whole world, covering this kind of education need. And if we look backwards, ACI FMA had since 1975 a code, ethical code of conduct called the Model Code, ACI Model Code. And at that time, it was more or less the only code for the financial markets. So it was used by market participants. And when the FX Global Code came up in, I think it was 2016 or so, at least we changed the model code from our ELAC platform and added the FX Global Code into the ELAC platform. We also added at that time the money market code from the Bank of England, and also the global precious metal code from LBMA. And for some years, 4 to 5 years, we had these 3 codes in our electronic platform. And now we actually have added the GDF digital finance crypto code. And we also have added a new ACI FMA handbook covering the different codes. There's also some other benefits that people can use as an ELAC user, like an electronic calendar with the bank holidays for 86 countries in the whole world. And then again, FX option course, which I think it's 16 models of FX option training that we actually have in ELAC. But we will present all this to you. And if some of you would like to have an individual presentation for your own institution afterwards, we can always agree on a Zoom or webinar or whatever you would like to have for your own staff members. So please let us know, reach out to us if you need any presentation on this education tool. And I'm sure that you will take over from here. And thank you again, LBMA, for giving us the time. Rui, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kim. Thank you, the LBMA as well. And thank you everyone for attending. It's really a pleasure to present our concentrate from now on our ELAC tool. ELAC, as you can see on the slide, stands for e-learning attestation certification, and that's basically a tool for ongoing continuous training on industry code. But as Kim just mentioned, we just added other features in ELAC. Let's concentrate on the global precious metals code, which is the purpose of this presentation. So I'll go to ELAC in a few slides, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of the scope, the framework of ELAC. So if we can move to the next slide, please. So ELAC really has 2 main parts for the standard users: the training part, and the training part is composed mainly by the code content, the self-assessment questions, and the market practice scenario. So I'll show you this 3 when we go live into the platform. But a particular focus here already on the market practice scenarios, because that is the content recognized by the users as the best part of ELAC, which are scenarios that try to replicate real life examples for you to test, to train, and then to test the practical implementation of the principles, the codes, and the guidelines of the code into real life, into situations that might have occurred, are occurring now, might occur in the future, covering, of course, all the sectors of the industry and all the roles that are involved within an institution on the precious metals market. But I'll come back to that. If you can move to the next slide, please. So I mentioned to you the 2 parts. The first part is the training, and the second part is the certification and administration. And the certification is something that we will see as well is fully flexible for every institution to design the way that they want those certification that we call the PAR, personal accreditation rating sessions. So any entity can go down and specify every setup of the PAR session to each individual user if they want, or just set up the same for each team. But again, I'll show you that in a few seconds. And of course, as well, we have an administration part within ELAC that allows the administrators slash managers, normally HR, compliance, business managers, to have a look, a complete view of the progress of every staff member under their scope in their PAR and in their training activity. So you will be able to see, if you are administrator and manager, you'll be able to see how everyone in your entity, in your team, is performing according to the requirements that you set up on ELAC. But anyway, this is something that just a brief slide, but I'll show you that live. Before we go then live, just to summarize, if we can move to the next slide, this is what Kim mentioned, is the current content that we have in ELAC. And again, we'll share this presentation with you, but now we'll just go and move, do a deep dive on the tool to show you the Global Precious Metals Code in ELAC, and of course already updated for the December 22 version that Emmy alluded to earlier. So if I can just go and share the presentation. Or rather share the browser. So this is ELAC, very, very important. It is a tool which is not downloaded. It is accessible in any browser. And we really emphasize that any browser can work in ELAC. So it's a very, very simple tool. And this is the landing page in ELAC, but I will cover on this presentation, focus on the two main parts that I mentioned to you, the training part and the certification part, because it is important to see how it really works in practice. So if I want to go first to the training part, and let's imagine that I'm a new user, I haven't read the code, I haven't seen the code, I want to see the code from scratch, but then I want to have training and certification. So if I'm a new user, I go, and of course, everyone, even if you are already someone that knows the code, you can read the code in your own flexibility, in your own requirements, and it is really the tool is really allows for everyone to choose the moments that they are free for doing the training and the certification. But again, let me show you that in practice. So in my demo, I have the codes that we have mentioned, but I'll concentrate on the Global Precious Metals Code, and it will remember, the tool will remember where I was last. So let's imagine that situation, that we were a new person checking the code. I'm reading the code from A to Z. And in this point in time, I'm on principle 7 from the pre-trade in execution. So I'm chapter 5.7. But again, this is where I was last. But if I want to go and see the whole code, I'll just go here to the index. And I have all the features, all the parts of the code. Even we have the cover page as well. So everything within the code is included here. So nothing different, and exactly the same text that has been published by the LBMA 1 month ago. So you have everything here already reflecting the new version of the code. So this is the principle that I was. Imagine again, I'm going from A to Z, and I'm here on principle 7 of the pre-trade and execution, as I mentioned before. So I'm reading this up, and this mentions about the markup applied to the client transaction that should really be fair and reasonable. So I'm reading this, and there are two main parts of having this available in this format. The first one, rather than just have it on a PDF, the first one is that ELAC counts your activity. It counts the minutes that you are actually active in the tool. So I'm reading this, I'm understanding, I'm pausing to understand really some of the topics that are here. And when I finish this principle or this part of the code, if I tick this part, then it will count automatically for my CPD, for my continuing professional development in minutes. And as you know, in some jurisdictions, and even if the jurisdiction doesn't require it, in some institutions, there is a requirement for minimum amount of minutes or hours on certain parts of training. And ELAC measures that activity, and it really measures just your active part. So if you are in the platform and the platform is stopped for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, it will not count for those 10 or 15 minutes. You really need to be active in the platform. And then when you finish this principle, as an example, you just read the current section, go to the next, and it counts with your CPD. So as I mentioned to you, two main benefits of having the code here in ELAC on this format. This is one where you count for your CPD, and the second one is the one where most of the ELAC users recognize the best part of it, like as I mentioned to you when we were looking at the PowerPoint, which is the ability for you to test automatically your knowledge acquired by this principle in real life, applying some cases that are built for ELAC. And here I'm just going to click on related cases here on the left, and I'm just going to click on the first one. And I'm just going to go into a case. And this case is called substantial growth. And this is a case, again, built for ELAC, and trying to replicate all the cases / scenarios, try to replicate a situation that has happened or is happening or might happen in real life. And this is why, and in order to bring that reality into the scenario, this is why the cases / scenarios have fictional characters, fictional entities. For instance, in this scenario, you have Michelle, she's the treasurer of Corporate Globe. You have Jason, which is the executive bank manager at Amber Bank, and you have Sarah, which is the salesperson for the bank. We have a set of characters, fictional characters, belonging or performing roles in fictional entities. And of course, in some entities, for instance, you have Amber Bank, a bank located in America, you have Eurobank, you have Asia Bank, because in some situations, the time differences that can occur could impact the answers that you give to the scenario. So the scenarios are built in a way that, again, you try to reflect situations that could have happened. So if you go here to the scenarios, that two things I want to mention to you before we go into the scenario. I'm conscious of time. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through the text of the scenario. This is just one example. But here you will have just a description of the scenario, and you can go continue, and you're still on training mode. But very, very important to know that each scenario has a set of questions and their respective answers. Each of them, answered correctly, has 4 points. So you are awarded 4 points if you get the question correct. So here, if you see 0 to 8, I haven't started it. So we will see 2 questions in this scenario. There might be scenarios with 1 question. There might be scenarios with 2, 3, or 4 questions. So it is really a comprehensive tool that, and we try to make the scenarios very, very simple, but then again, very comprehensive because they reflect the guidelines of the code into the real market instances. The other part I wanted to mention to you is about the code reference. So if you recall, when we were reading the code, we were on this principle. Now we move to the area of the market practice. That's fine. We don't need to go back and reading. If you just imagine that you just got busy in the market and come back to ELAC 10 minutes later, you don't need to go back to the area of reading the codes to check the principle again. No, you can just click on here, and you have the principle exactly the same as we have seen it before. Okay, so before that, let's go into the scenario. And on the scenario, we just do continue, and we have one type of question, which is a set checklist question. So we have checklist question. In this case, you must select all the correct answer options in order to get it correct. So in this case, I'm going to select all of them, but I know that in this scenario, selecting all of them will make the question wrong. But I'm going to make it on purpose, the answers wrong, so you can see the impact. So I'm going to select them all. But this one, the answer B is not correct, but I'm going to check it and make it again on purpose wrong for you to check exactly what it is, because ELAC is designed in a way in which you always have feedback. And that feedback is very, very important. And in this case, you see the feedback for answer. It's very, very important as a learning tool. And ELAC is really designed, and we go into the certification part in a few minutes, but ELAC is really, really designed in a way that if you train, you become compliant on an ongoing, on a continuous basis. And that is really what this ELAC is designed to do. It's not a tool for you to, meant for you to fail or to trick you. No, it's really a tool to incentivize your training and understanding of the guidelines of the code and how they apply in practice, because in that way, we feel that it is easy for us to implement the guidelines, important guidelines of the Global Precious Metals Code in practice, which is what we all want. We all want the market to be fair, competitive, transparent, where everyone can transact. And this is what the code is there for. And we try to apply exactly the same into the training modes, into the scenarios, into the questions that we'll see in a minute in ELAC, so that if you really train, you really embed that knowledge and then try to, and then naturally you will apply it in practice. So, and this is why it is important for us to see that you got the incorrect answer. If I selected A and C, would have been correct, I would have been awarded 4 points, but as I mentioned, I made this on purpose. But you always have the feedback either here or there, because it is important that you know why that question is not correct. But we move forward. And there's another question here. I mentioned to you that there are 2. And this is just not, if you can see here, this is a checklist question, the first one. And this one is a multiple choice question. So multiple choice can come with 2 alternatives, 3 alternatives, like in this case, or 4 alternatives. So this one, I'm going to get it right. So I'm just going to get this one. And even if you get it right, you always have feedback as well. So ELAC, again, allows you to have that feedback to understand. And if you want to see why the other questions were incorrect, you can always scroll down and see it. Again, incentivize training by learning, by embedding the knowledge, and then naturally you will apply the code. You become compliant according to the requirements that, as I mentioned, we'll see in a few minutes, and then apply the guidelines in practice. So this is the way that the scenarios are built. And I'll just go here. If you got, for instance, I got it wrong, what can I do? Because I'm on training mode, I'll go continue, and I have the chance to reset this case and take it again. I gave you, in this case, I gave you the answers, right? But if you didn't know the answers, you could go back and train and look at the principle again and reset this case and train it again. On the training mode, you have no problem at all. You can train as many times, you can do the examples as many times as you want. But of course, we do suggest that you read the code again, you read the application of the code, read everything back again, and then come back to the training. So this is the market practice. If I want to go, for instance, imagine that I've already read the code either on the first part here or on the PDF. And if I just want to go and do market practice cases or scenarios, I can just go here and have a set of the cases, scenarios that are available. In this case, you'll see the ones that are available in my demo, and I can just have an attempt at each of those cases. So again, the way you do your training, the way that every individual do their training is really, really flexible, and it really needs to be adjusted to your particular availability, and of course, according to the requirements of your entity. And ELAC is really a tool for entities to distribute then for their staff members for training on ethical codes, on a global practice, good market practices and ethical conduct. So here, as you can see, for instance, all sections, if I want on the precious metals code, if I just want cases, for instance, on ethics, I go here and I have on my demo, I have 6 cases on ethics. If I want to go to the other ones, information sharing, I have 3. This is just limited number on my demo. And I can just go, and again, if I just click on one of those it can be any principle in this one, in this case for information sharing, but it's also very, very important to see that a lot of cases a lot of scenarios cases do have various principles, because the principles of the Global Personal Methods Code, the guidelines, are interlinked. They're not in isolation. So here you see that you have a principle on ethics and two principles on information sharing. And then you go with two different characters here, Omar, salesperson for every bank, and Li Cheng is a customer for Lev Fund. And then you go into the question as well here. So again, it is very important to know that you read the code, but not in isolation, all combined, and then you are ready for the scenarios. Okay, now these are the scenarios. We saw the training mode. On the training mode, we reading the codes. Now we see the scenarios, the final parts of the training mode. But again, the order is really up to you, because you're fully flexible, is what we call the self-assessment. Self-assessment are questions. And here are questions on the definitions, glossary, terminology used in the code. So here you will not see content questions with Jason, with Omar, with Michelle. No, you will not see situations that could happen in or are happening in real life. Here you will have a definition, for instance, what is understood as market, which of these entities can be market participants for the Global Precious Metals Code? What is the definition of applicable law? We believe that the practical aspect of the code needs, of course, to be supported by a deep comprehension of all the terminology, all the definitions included in the code. And this is where the self-assessment questions come up. Of course, if you want to do the training on reading the code and go into the questions and then go into the cases, that's fine. If you want to do the other way around or just switch them off, that's fine. Again, it's really, really up to you to decide which way you feel that you should be trained best. So here I'll just mention one question, Global Personal Methods Code. I'm just going to select the ethics and one question. Again, you can do a test, how many questions you have. Again, I have a limited number of on my demo. And we'll just see a question, very, very simple one that says, for instance, which of the situations below may compromise or be perceived to compromise the ethical professional judgment of market participants? Then you can see, okay, it's actual and potential conflicts of interest. Then I'll get green, I'll get 4 points. If I wasn't sure on how to answer this question, I still had the related principle in here before I answer the question. And if I got it wrong, of course, I can reset all the questions and take them all again. So this is the training part, reading the codes, self-assessment questions more on the theory side, and then the cases scenarios more on the practical side. Once you are ready with the training, then let's go to the second part, which is the training part. Oh, sorry, the certification part. So the training part is the first, the second one is the certification. And here is where you apply everything that you learned on the training part, but here you are on a test certification, if you want to call it an exam environment, but on an ongoing basis. And this is where we come back to that PAR, which stands for Personal Accreditation Rating. And here is where your entity, by the business manager, the administrators manager, will define what are the criteria that needs to be set up for your PAR sessions, taking into account always what I mentioned before, that this is an ongoing, a continuous certification. So of course, if I go for my PAR session, I need to define the first criteria that I need to define is what is the time interval of my PAR sessions, of my certification. In this case, it's 2 weeks, but you can set it up for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. We have various institutions that have 3 months, 2 months, 6 months. We have some institutions that have 1 year as well. Again, it's really, really up to your entity to define what do you think is the best regularity for you to do the certifications. And again, it can be, let's just make an example, front office can have 2 months and back office can have 3 months. So you, if you want, you can define by the individual user that criteria. So that is the first criteria, regularity of the certification. The second criteria, very, very important, is what is for your entity the minimum score for compliance. you define it. We have institutions that have 85. We have institutions that have 50. We have institutions that have for front office 75, for middle office 60%. Again, fully flexible. So you can define for each individual, if you want in your institution, or if you want to make it simple, just define it for each team, the requirements on the minimum score for compliance. So that is the second criteria. The first criteria, the regularity of the PAR sessions. Second criteria, the minimum score for compliance on those PAR sessions. And then the third and fourth criteria combined with these first two is how many cases and how many questions do you need to answer on that. If you say 3 months, subject to that 75% if you define it like that. And again, you can define this by individual user. The cases and the questions have the same format as the ones that you have on the training, but not the same. They are different. And there is another particular difference, very, very important here that I'll show to you if I go just to mention one example on the cases. I'll just push one case so you can see. So here I just have a case for Howard, which is a head of risk management at Eurobank. And you have 4 points here. So here you are on certification mode, on testing mode. And here you have a checklist question. So you need to select which ones are right. But let's not go over to the question. I just want to show you something very, very, very important here. And I hope you can spot it, that because you are on PAR session, now you're not on training anymore. You are on the exam part, you are on the certification part. You do not have the benefit of checking which principle does this scenario apply to. So by the time you get here, you really should have studied and comprehended and trained for the questions and the scenarios on the training mode, because here you do not have the benefit of knowing which principle applies to. So you are on your own because it is an exam, but an ongoing exam. But, and coming back to my comment earlier, that we really want in ELAC for people to train, because in my situation, if you recall, I have my PAR session until the 12 days to finish, so we will only finish on the 31st. If I'm looking at that question, and if I don't know where we have Howard, that fictional character, if I don't know exactly how to answer, because I have until the 31st of January, I still have 20 days, I will look at that scenario and I'm thinking, okay, where can this be? Okay, risk management role. So maybe I can go down to the area of the Global Precious Metals Code, where we're talking about governance and risk management. And then I can study that principle, those principles again, and feel after that, maybe even do some questions on some scenarios on the training mode of that. And then after I get a little bit more knowledge, I can come back to this certification and then answer this feeling more comfortable that I'll get it right. And that is exactly the way that the LAC is designed to do. We don't advise users to leave the certification until the very last day. We do suggest that they do it on an ongoing basis, because then they can go back and train and read again and comprehend better the terms and the guidelines that are there, and then come back to doing the scenario on the certification mode, feeling better prepared. This happens for the scenario, but the same would apply if I had just gone into the PAR session and clicked on a question. And it's really, really the way that ELAC is designed to do it, for you to train, spend some time, dedicate some time on training, but it doesn't take you more than 5 minutes per day, or let's say half an hour during a week, for you by the end of the year to have really, really understood the Global Precious Metals Code, and most importantly, know how to apply those guidelines in practice, which is what we all want for all market participants. Okay, so I'm just a couple of minutes more. I'm just finishing the certification. I just finished the certification part. So we see the training part, we see the certification. It's very, very important as well that in ELAC, you see your compliance report that measures all your past sessions, because these are just started. Of course, I'm non-compliant, but as you can see here, 4 sessions that I have will contribute to my compliance score. And it's important to see that this is on a rolling basis. So if I feel the next 4, so 2 weeks I have, so if I feel the next 8 weeks will be measured for 4 past sessions, then I'll go into the 5th one. It will clean my first, and then we'll go the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and then so on. Because again, we need to measure compliance on an ongoing basis. But you will have a chance to see your compliance status in here, and as well, you have a chance to see your CPD report here with the activity that you spend on it. I've just started this past session. That's why you only have 6 minutes that we spend on the market practice cases and 3 minutes on the self-assessment. So, but of course, as you go along, you'll see your activity here, and you can select the reporting period. So this is available for all users. And I just want to show you in the last couple of minutes the admin dashboard, which is the part of ELAC which is only available for the administrators, managers that you define in each entity. Normally, the business managers, compliance, HR. Here is the area where you can have, as a snapshot for the last 3 part sessions, the whole history of every staff member under your scope. So here you can see what is their performance in ELAC. As you can see, I only have myself, and I can see the last 3 part sessions. In this case, I can only see the last one because I've only started. But if you want to see that in a different format, because this is just a snapshot, you can go here. And again, this is just for the administrators, managers, and have a full report of all the activities within your staff members in ELAC by their PAR performance, by their CPD report, and also as well, which what we call the code coverage is, you will have a chance to see which principles, which areas of the code some of the users fare better than others. So if you say that, for instance, in one particular area of the code, let's say on ethics, your users score lower than 60%, again, you can do with the numbers whatever you want. But if you feel that they are scoring less on ethics, then you can always address that question on a ad hoc session and check why we're not getting, and then having either do new sessions that you can have internal sessions that you can improve the knowledge of those principles. But again, the numbers are there. It's really for you to use it the way that you feel most appropriate. And in a nutshell, this is ELAC for the Global Precious Metals Code. Again, as we mentioned, this applies for the other codes as well. And we have, as Tim mentioned as well, the calendar here and the FX options scores in here. But in the main part for the Global Precious Metals Code, this is what I wanted to show you in ELAC. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Rui. It was great to see and get a feel for the platform. We've got a few questions that have come through. First one is, how can ELAC support and demonstrate adherence to the code?
That's an excellent question. Thank you very much, Amy. And it's exactly what ELAC is designed to do, because and there's one very important part on ELAC, which I haven't mentioned there, is that the proportionality part. Because the code is proportional, not every principle, not every guideline applies to all the market participants, and ELAC can be designed in a way exactly to fit that proportionality. And then by having the PAR sessions designed according to the needs of every institution, you will have that proof of adherence by the compliance of every staff member. We have a few examples. We have, for instance, some institutions that I was recalling one from the FX code that they said they wanted to sign the statement of commitment. But before they did that, they did intense PAR sessions for 3 months to check whether more than 75% of their staff were understanding the code. So the questions and the scenarios covered the whole part of the code as it happens for the other codes. And only because they were satisfied with that, then they decided to sign the statement of committee. So they were able to show to their regulators that they were having the proof of adherence for every individual staff member that was involved in the FX market. And the same applies for the Global Precious Metals Code. So ELAC, by the compliance reports and by the CPD reports, allows you to demonstrate that proof of adherence on an ongoing basis. And this is very, very important.
Brilliant. We've got another question. Is the training available in any language beside English?
The training is available in the standard language of the codes. And in this case, for the Global Precious Metals Code, it's only in English.
Brilliant. Does the license allow an individual to revisit the course mid-year if they wish?
That's a very good question as well. Thank you. The ELAC is designed in a way, again, as I mentioned, sorry for repeating myself, about the continuous basis and ongoing basis. And all ELAC licenses are on an annual basis, because we believe that you need at least 1 year to understand the code, and most importantly, then implement them in practice. So within 1 year, you can select, and users can go into ELAC at any point in time. If they want to select par sessions every month, then we'll go every month, every 3 months, and then we include it 1 year. So yes, they can access the course at any point in time, not just in the mid-year, but they will have to have at least 1 year of training and certification.
Brilliant. And so how do I register for the course?
That's something that you can call LBMA. I think there's the details on the website, and they're probably coming here afterwards. And then we can discuss with your entity on how to onboard the users to ELAC. It's really, really important to mention again that it's really a flexible tool. Not every entity in ELAC has the same setup as another one. There's no equal setup. It's really, really important that the tool is adjusted to your particular requirements.
Brilliant, thank you. I think that's it for questions. But yeah, I would just like to say a huge thank you to Rui and Kim for that and showing us how the training can help us demonstrate adherence to the code. And if we can move on, oh, I've got the slide up. I just wanted to highlight also a couple more dates for your diary. In February, we have 2 training courses coming up. We have the Introduction to Loco London and the Introduction to Responsible Sourcing. And of course, we've got the member events in March and the A&R conference, which I'm really looking forward to. And so, yeah, thank you all for joining. And if you do have any further questions, you can contact us at ask@lbma.org.uk. Thank you all.
Thank you for inviting us.